Have you ever doubted yourself in leadership?
Well, that's a great question, Liz. I wasn't afraid to put myself forward for things.
It's interesting, isn't it, how sport, activities outside of work really do influence careers.
Maybe I'm a glutton for punishment because sales is a tough job, just generally speaking. You had some great leaders and had some really poor leaders.
The role that you have now is like a million light years away. So can you just tell us about how you navigated to this role that you have today?
I'd always wanted to progress to the next level. Have I made a mistake? Probably the most intense 18 months to 2 years of my life, I think, in terms of working.
So how did you create that mental resilience for yourself then to manage and have the capacity day in, day out to deal with everything that was coming your way? There's always some fire needs to be put out, isn't there, in leadership? So today I'm joined by somebody I deeply respect in the industry, somebody that I've worked with many years ago at Vodafone. So I'm pleased to have Simon Cowap join me today, who's the Outbound Sales Director at Domestic and General. So it's great to have you here with us.
Thanks for having me, Liz. Appreciate the invite.
Oh, no. Like I say, we've worked together for quite some time. It's a few years ago now, but it's brilliant. I've been watching your career from afar. So let's jump straight into it. What was like your first role as a leader then, Simon? And like, how did that shape you into the leader that you are now?
It's a good question. I've got to go back quite a few years to go back to that point. And it was a team leader role. So would have been at Vodafone many years ago. Actually, it probably would have been at Single Point if I go back long enough for those people obviously remember the John Caldwell days. So right at the point at when obviously Vodafone purchased Caldwell's stake in Phones for You and obviously took corporate for you, there was an option then to either go and do business with Vodafone or try and throw yourself into the consumer side of things. And it was more to do with travel and commute. So I didn't want to go any further out than Stoke because it was already an hour's commute either way. So I thought, you know what, we'll stay with the consumer business. And not long after that, I got the chance to become a team leader. So those that remember will remember the Chris Hunts and the John Taylors of the world who, great guys, very fond memories of working with those guys. And that was my first position, team leader in one of the customer retention teams. So quite an introduction.
Yeah. Did you always see yourself as being a leader?
I suppose yes and no. So I think probably going back again even further. Obviously, I did a lot of sport as a kid. At quite a decent level, and was captain of a number of teams, performed particularly well, in a number of teams, and I think that helps to form a lot of, I think, early leadership skills. So what you do find is when you're up against it in a team sport and everyone's got to dig in, there's often a lot of looking across the team, especially when you're a little bit younger and you're looking for that person to kind of lift their head above the parapet and and actually pull the team together and drag yourself through and and push yourself on to win a game, and I saw myself as part of that and kind of did that on a number of occasions. So I was made captain of teams for I think for similar reasons. Same with a couple of good friends of mine, and so you kind of have that in you from probably from a younger age. And so I wasn't afraid to put myself forward for things, and I think you have a little bit of natural leadership tendency there. I think when that happens, that I think you tend to gravitate towards it. I left uni without a real clue as to what I wanted to do. Ended up in telecoms, bit of a random space, and that's kind of where I stayed for 17, 18 years before moving to D&G. So I think did I have a tendency towards leadership? Maybe some of it was predetermined. I think from some of the sporting days that I had, and you kind of just build and grow on that, and you kind of see how the path kind of forms itself. I think to a large extent. It's
interesting, isn't it, how sport activities outside of work really do influence careers. Often in my program, energy is a big part of a big feature, because if you don't have the energy to sustain throughout the day and manage that bandwidth, mental capacity, you do struggle in leadership. And it's interesting how you said you played a lot of sport, and you became a natural leader. Do you think that helped to shape your values as a leader as well?
Yeah, I think it does. I think I say sport is a good example. There's a lot of parallels and similarities between what you do in sport and what you do in business, and and there's plenty of podcasts and books that have been written about what those parallels are. But I can't help think that it does shape you. I think it's inevitable to a certain extent. You see what you see in others. You look up to leaders. So I've had a number of great captains, if you like, in the sport arena. I had some really poor captains as well, and it's exactly the same. I think with leadership, I had some great leaders and I had some really poor leaders. And what you do is you take the best bits from those great leaders, and you kind of want to put them into yourself and instill those as values in you. And then the stuff that you don't like, you kind of leave on the sideline, so to speak. And that's the stuff that, do you know what, that's not me. I'll never do that with my teams. And I say you just kind of pinch the bits that you want as you go along, and just ignore the rest. And obviously you put your own kind of slant on top of that, and that's ultimately what for me that's what shapes you as a leader.
Yeah, definitely. And it does drive your leadership style, doesn't it? Like you say, you take bits from some great leaders and maybe don't take others from perhaps leaders that you're not drawn to naturally, and create like your own leadership style. So tell us about your career then. So you got this team manager role, you went into telecoms. What next? How did you, because obviously the role that you have now is like a million light years away. So can you just tell us about how you navigated to this role that you have today?
Yeah, so I was in team leadership for quite a while. Business as big as Vodafone, you get plenty of opportunities to move around, the various areas and channels, which is great, and it helps you to build up your skill set and and learn from new people. So I did that for a number of years, and then after I was a team leader, I went into the outsource space. So working with the likes of Nick McCoy, Lee Simmons, managing some of the partners that we had back then in Vodafone, and it was a relatively small operation back then. And again, that was a kind of slightly different take on leadership, because you were leading a partner ultimately where you have influence but you don't have direct control. So that was quite a tough role, but obviously lots of learnings and as you'd expect, lots of financial accountability on your shoulders with the revenues that you were required to drive through the campaigns that you managed with the old partners. So that was a great insight into a different take on leadership. I did that for quite a number of years. Really enjoyed the outsource working. And then from that moved away from sales, which I absolutely loved, into the credit and collection space. So working with a different partner, with a different leader. That was my first female leader. So Tracy Swenner was my first female leader in the credit and collection space. And then out the back of that, I wanted to get back into sales, and that's kind of where it's like a natural gravitation of going back towards that. And maybe I'm a glutton for punishment, because sales is a tough job, just generally speaking, but that's what I loved. It's what I enjoyed, and at the time I moved into I say an ops readiness change role. So that was when Vodafone, obviously you can say it now, but that's when Vodafone had a secret project. It was known as Project 11 for some of those people that were familiar with it, and it's a really small group of people that were working on Vodafone entering the broadband space. Never done it before. Saw it was a real strategic, important pillar as part of where they were heading as a business, and I was the main lead for the telesales and retention function, which again, something that was really exciting, really new. Spent a lot of time down in Newbury in the projects, a lot of intense work, but again, you get to work with different groups of people. So you're seeing things from some really senior stakeholders in that, and it was a good opportunity for me to showcase my skills and talent that I had. Which again, it was a real successful launch. Everything went well from that point. But again, that was a role that I kind of stayed in for a good number of years, because you were always at the forefront of something that was new. So there was always stuff that was coming down the track that was exciting. It was really interesting. And, I think I had probably 11 or 12 different roles when I was at Vodafone. And I moved about quite frequently, but that was one that kind of held me there for quite a while by the fact that there was so much that was new there. And I thought, you know what, I'll stay here for a little bit longer. And then there was another opportunity that came along, which was to help reshore some of the work that was overseas and some of our shared service locations and some of our partners, try and bring some of that back on shore. I think, quite well documented. I think some of the challenging times that Vodafone had with their system implementation and some of the Ofcom repercussions that they got as a result of that. And there was a big site that we opened up in Manchester. Myself and Lee Simmons were heading that up as ops managers to bring back. It was around about 700 people, and that was a great opportunity, because you went from 0 to 700 in the space of about 18 months. So great opportunity to stamp your culture all over it. And myself and Lee got on really, really well. We did that. We grew a leadership team from, no team leaders all the way up to probably 40, 50 team leaders. We had the help of Simon Gold in that process as well. And then that was just a natural piece of it. I'd done that for a couple of years, and I'd always wanted to progress to the next level. But as you go further up the chain, the opportunities become slightly fewer. And I could see over the other side of the fence in the sales arena, which I kind of stepped away from, that there were opportunities that were coming at that level, and then and people moved into those roles, and great for those individuals. But I got particularly frustrated at that, and made it known to my boss at the time that, listen, have I made a mistake? By coming here and helping set this up, great for the business, and great personal kudos for both me and Lee. But actually, was it the right decision for me to take? And I think that probably took my boss back a little bit. I think, because whilst he knew that I wanted to progress, I think he might have saw that as a bit of a, oh crikey, right? I didn't really think you wanted to progress this quickly. And don't get me wrong, I was well into my career. I'd done many years at the appropriate, as they call it, the G-band level. So for me, I was ready for a move. And then all of a sudden, through it wasn't even a chance conversation. It was through a one-to-one that I was having. There's an opportunity to come up in customer relations. Now, customer relations was a bit of a poison chalice back then, and I will say that. And I think, to a degree, it's understandable because of what the business was going through, and there weren't many people that kind of made it out of the role. And I think my predecessor had come out in a pretty decent space, but I think it was quite telling that all the seasoned leaders at that level wouldn't touch that role with a barge pole. They wouldn't go near it, which was, with hindsight, I probably should have taken some of that feedback and stay clear of it myself, I think, potentially. But so I said, no, I stuck my hand up and said, yeah, no problem, I'll go into that. And it was a step up, and it was it was diagonal movement, diagonal mobility in terms of going up and across. So yes, customer relations similar to care, but bearing in mind this was a team that was probably 600 strong, working across probably 30 or 40 different work streams, some very niche, complex things. The CEO's office, with everything else in between, all the other senior directors, and at the time there was a lot of pressure on the business to turn around to deliver revenue. And obviously, Vodafone being the high-profile public company that it is, it didn't take much for people to want to have a pop at it in any way, shape, or form. So yeah, I jumped into that with 2 feet, and probably, and my other half will probably say the same, probably the most intense 18 months to 2 years of my life, I think, in terms of working. Really tough at times.
In what way? In what way was it intense?
I mean, not least, it was demanding. So you often it was 12 hours a day, 5 days a week, 6 days a week, because you don't really get chance to switch off much at the weekends. Your team, there was always something that came in that needed to be addressed. Be it a roaming issue in a certain country whereby thousands of customers have been billed incorrectly, or something that had come up through the media or through a newspaper article, because obviously the journalists like to write quite a bit about the business as well. There was always something there, and the nature of customer relations, very rarely do customers write in or call in to tell you you're doing a great job. So mental resilience was, you need to have a lot of mental resilience in that role. And I had a great team. When we had to reshape the team, it'd been through a bit of a tough time prior to when I came in, but we had to reshape the team and get it into a good position. Really drive the engagement with the individuals, and make we had to lift some of the leaders up off the floor, quite frankly, and that was the job. I brought a few people into the team to help do that, and over the course of time, we put it into a much better place. That when I moved on 18 months, 2 years down the line, it was actually in a much better place. Still opportunity, for sure, but it was in a much better place. It was much more stable. We've done some great work with the ombudsman. We'd moved the ombudsman contracts. We got the ombudsman rates down to probably to record levels at the time. And so we were in a really, really good place, but you needed a lot of resilience. It was physically demanding because you were working long hours. I had 5 sites at the time. So, you were up and down the country, overseas, 2 sites in India. So there were a lot of things going on, and you still had to do, the day job as well, and make sure you were there for your leaders. And I think, the type of leader that I am, I'm always on, I'm always there for my people. And I think it's the right thing to do. You're always accessible. I know some leaders, take a different steer, but for me, it's important that if my guys need me, I'm there for them. So, they need to feel supported. So very demanding, but, fast forward 18 months, 2 years out of that role, being in a much better place. I was, with hindsight, it was the right thing to do. At the time, you went pretty deep in terms of, have I made the right decision? Sometimes, what the hell have I done here? Type conversation with yourself, and then it's more around, just giving yourself a bit of a kick up the backside, saying, "No, come on, you can do this. You're in here for a reason, and and just dig in, and that's you kind of find your way through it, and time passes really, really quickly. Before I knew, I was 6 months in, 12 months in, really settled, finding my feet, and actually helped to shape what was going on within the department, which was, as things became a little bit easier after that point, but the demands were
Yeah.
still there, both physical and
You
mental.
talk about that mental resilience then, and I can't imagine the amount of decisions you had to make on a daily basis. Like you say, if there was roaming charges that shouldn't have been applied, and you talked about like your team, not some of your team like on the floor and things like that. So how did you create that mental resilience for yourself then to manage and have the capacity day in, day out to deal with everything that was coming your way?
You've got to build it, Liz. You can't just go and read a book. Oh, I've read that. That's great. I'm mentally resilient now, so that's ticking the box. I'll be fine. For the next few months. You've got to go through the situations, and I know sometimes that's quite tough for people, and it was tough for me at times. But you have to go through that to know how you come out the other side, and not everybody does. I think we need to be quite open and honest about that. But I think you need to lean on people, lean on your networks, lean on people to support you, to make sure you kind of I say earlier on, you're taking the good bits from people. Okay, that kind of works. I understand that, and you do kind of find a way through it. And I don't think there's like a hard and fast rule to go. If you do this, you do X, Y, Z, 1, 2, 3. That's going to give you mental resilience and capacity to carry on. I don't think it's as straightforward as that. I think you need to go through some really tough times and situations to know how to face into that. And then you go, do you know what? I've been here before. That's what I'm in now is a breeze compared to where I was, and you kind of have to build that confidence, and you see that in some of your results, so that you can take heart in the results that you're actually delivering, that you've got resilience, and you can see that come through in what it is that you are delivering for for whoever it is that you're working for, and you see it in your people. So you have to kind of take heart for your people, and it can be quite a lonely place being a leader when you've got 500 or 600 people who are all looking at you, and when things go wrong, they're expecting an answer from you to go, yeah, that's all right, I'll make it better. And sometimes you don't have that answer. That's the reality of it. But you just go, do you know what? Let's get together as a team. We'll figure it out, and we'll find a way through it. So it's not just do it all on your own. It's using the team that's around you to kind of see you through. And I think it's also important, and again, to get that pat on the back, the thank you, that they do really go a long way. I think when people are having it. So I remember my boss at the time. I remember he said to me very clearly, he says, you wear the pressure well, which I could only take, and I'll not name the boss, but he wasn't often complimentary, just generally the type of person that he was. But to get a compliment like that, I thought was quite good. And so again, shows that, I must be doing a pretty decent job to be able to be in that situation, and to get that compliment back. Actually just keep doing what you're doing, just trust the process and keep doing what you're doing, because clearly other people are noticing it. And that's how you kind of just build and push on from there.
I think it's brilliant how you said you reached out to your network and you worked with your team. You're right. There's no one way to build resilience. And what you've just said there is, because it feels like, it can be fearful at times when you're under that pressure. If you haven't got the answers and people are looking to you for the answers, that's quite, pushing past through that fear of the unknown. But I think that combination, obviously, you've got the results by looking at your network, being open with your network, taking advice, and working with your team. Doing a few of these key things can help you. Like you say, that resilience is then being built because you've said, well, I've looked back and thought, I've done this before. This is easier than the last situation that I was in. So I think that's really great, sharing of your approach. It's interesting though, how you said, like, I'm assuming it was a male manager that doesn't give feedback, so, which is a shame given that you were delivering and you left it in a better situation than it was 18 months previously. What do you think about getting feedback in leadership? How important is it?
Yeah, I should probably clarify the comment. So you got feedback, but only things weren't going too well.
Yeah, that's the thing.
It's probably what I failed to mention. So to get a compliment was actually rare, but you take it in the spirit that it was intended. I think it's important. Obviously, get your feedback, understand how it is that you perform. And I'm very much of the one that I'll get my feedback through the results that I'm delivering. and I'll know, you kind of have uh, your own internal compass, if you like. You know whether or not you're delivering good results, and you can see. And it's not all about in numbers. Obviously, sales is quite easy to be able to see. Are we hitting budget? Are we outperforming budget? Are we getting the people scores right? Have we got the people metrics in a good place? Yeah, okay. So then we must be doing a pretty decent job, and you can push on from there. But I think you can get feedback in multiple different ways. I think it is important to get that, because again, you don't want to be running in isolation thinking that you're doing a great job. And again, self-awareness is a really important piece. It's important to get that feedback from individuals to know that you are getting that, and to help continue to shape what you've got, because you're never there. You're never going to be perfect. You're never be the perfect leader. I think there's always an opportunity to learn from various people.
Yeah, definitely. For me, feedback is key. And I think just a quick tip on that, I always say to people, if you're asking for feedback, help the person who you're asking for feedback from, and just really tailor and be specific. You can say, rather than, can you just give me some feedback? Ask them, can you give me feedback on this particular thing? Did I come across well? Did you understand the information? What was the key messages? Just really try and help them to help you, essentially. But yeah, I'm with you. Feedback is massively key. So you did it. You got through customer relations, 18 months, did you say?
Yeah,
And
I think just
then,
over 18 months, and then it was to a degree, it was like you've earned your right to go and look at the other roles, which is quite crazy. And I moved into the head of ops readiness role, which John Lowe used to do. So obviously John had moved on. I think he moved into a role I think it was in business. I think from recollection, or maybe even a business manager role, and that was like night and day, because it was like running at 150 miles an hour for 18 months, 2 years, dropping down to what felt like 30 to 40 miles an hour, and I just didn't feel it. I didn't really enjoy the role. I wanted to get back into sales. The opportunity wasn't there at Vodafone, and so I thought, you know what, it is time to move on. I think a lot of people can hang around for the golden envelope, which can tend to come, but my mind was made up. I wanted to go. It wasn't about that for me. I was happy with what I'd achieved, and I wanted to do something different. So that's ultimately how I ended up at D&G in a role, and joined right the way through the middle of the pandemic, which again was a bit of a crazy move based on some people's views, but I absolutely don't regret it. It was the best move, the best move that I made, and I said to a number of people, I probably should have gone a little bit earlier. But I'm also a firm believer in fate. Things happen for a reason, and from a timing point of view, I think this was just the right time to leave in a pretty decent position, which was good. And so, but this was completely different. This was coming in where there was private equity backed business, coming in where there was a clear strategy and plan as to what the business wanted to do to drive a lot of growth. Massive headcount increases. Some great opportunities with our clients to really start to work on some of their data and their campaigns. And you fast forward, what would be, I've been there 5 years now, which has gone really, really fast, and we've got volumes that even back when I joined, I probably didn't think we'd ever get to. But again, through building a great team, working across the business, very collaborative approach, having a really supportive boss in Chris Gowdy, who I report into at the minute. It was just, there you go, that you've got the autonomy. There's the canvas. Go and do what you need to do, and obviously go and do what you do best. And as I say, we've had some brilliant results over the course of that time. But again, you have challenges in amongst all of that. There's been a few bumps in the road, but you lean back on that experience that you've taken from some of those tough situations, and you draw from that experience. And right, okay, let's sit down. Let's look at what's in front of us. Right, what's the plan? What are we going to do? Lean on your team, as I've already said. And make sure that your team are empowered to deliver, because you obviously put them in place for a reason. And then again, you see it, you see it come right. We've been in a couple of situations whereby we've needed to kind of reset a little bit for differing reasons. So for regulatory changes, for changing direction, some campaigns not materialising the way that we'd expect. But again, you take it all as learnings, and off you go. You kind of just push on again, and it always comes right.
That's interesting.
You take the approach that you've taken before that works.
That's interesting, Simon, you said about the learnings then. So failure is inevitable. With the best career in the world, there will be an element of failure along the way, things that haven't gone right. And it's not a bad thing to have failure, because it's experience, right? It's growth. It's how you perceive it. It's not to take it personally, but to take it professionally when something doesn't go to plan. So you must have had experiences in your career where something hasn't gone to plan. What's been like your thought process with that and navigating through those challenges?
Yeah, I think working in a business like D&G, it is very supportive. So fail fast. I know a lot of people talk about failing fast and creating an environment for your team to be able to make a mistake. Well, I say it's not even a mistake. I think if you do it 2 or 3 times, you say probably it's mistakes. If you do it once, then it's a little bit of failure that you just need to kind of take the learnings from and take a step back and analyze what works, what didn't work, and actually make sure you take the learnings and go again on it. I think you have to allow your teams to do that. I think it's really important that you give them the space to do that. I think some organizations don't like you doing that. They expect perfection every single time, which is great if you can get there. But I think you have to be a realist. In this day and age, things don't always go to plan, and you need to make sure that you have a bit of a backup plan. That if it doesn't, that you've got a bit of a process or a model in place that Agile spoken about quite a lot. You do a retrospective on some of the stuff that you've done across sprints and stuff. We don't necessarily work that directly within the area that I'm in, but you kind of take some of those learnings that you've taken from previous roles and experiences, right? What worked, what didn't work, right? What do we need to do a little bit differently, right? Okay, let's take these learnings. Post implementation reviews. A couple of guys in my team who manage a lot of change and readiness and governance activity. They're straight on it. They want to learn from what went well, what didn't go well, and going back to the feedback piece, you go out and get the feedback from the key stakeholders. Speak to the agents, speak to the team leaders, speak to the ops managers, speak to to your commercial team, to your planning teams. You get a fully rounded view, right? Okay, we're completely clear on the fact that this all works. We're not sure about this. Actually, let's make sure that when we do a similar activity next time around, that we take this forward and that you implement it, and then you've got something that drives continuous improvement in what it is that you're trying to do. So yeah, that's probably, for me, that's probably the best way to approach it.
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, I love that. Again, you keep coming back to this collaboration, lessons learned. What can we do better? It's how you respond, isn't it? Because there's no such thing as perfection. But I do see it in a lot of leaders where something's gone wrong and they do take it personally. Now, whether that's because they haven't had the support that you clearly have got at D&G, but it can hold you back, and it knocks your confidence. But if you can try and see past the situation isn't about you and it's about the situation, and then use what you've just said, that collaboration and who are the right teams we need to have in place to help the situation move forward, then it takes it being personal. I mean, obviously, like you say, if you keep making the same mistake time and time again, I hear you. I get that. But I love your approach, how you respond. Because I should imagine really that this might be a daily, situation. There's always some fire needs to be put out, isn't there, in leadership?
There's always, there's always something there, and especially the nature of what we do, in the channel that I lead now, it's very cyclical. So you might have a good day, you might have the following day might be as good a day as the one you've had before, and you're straight into the numbers, you're straight into, the information to tell you why was that the case? Have we done something different? Yeah, you're right. You're always going to get a situation like that. I think it's interesting you mentioned about the personal side of things, because I take not take a lot of things personally, but I see it as being on me. If I'm leading a group of people, I'm the one ultimately accountable and ultimately responsible. That's what I've kind of put myself up to, to be in charge of. And therefore, if we don't hit what it is that we need to hit, we don't achieve the numbers that we need to achieve, then yes, it's on me. But you've kind of got to be able to separate that from the fact that it's what's in your control versus what's outside of your control. And again, similar with your teams, there's some things that you can't necessarily control directly. You can try and influence, but you can't necessarily control directly. So long as you're doing anything you can be doing to maximize your results or your return or your performance, then I think you can probably remove some of the personal element there. I think if you're not doing that, then clearly, yes, you should be taking it personally, because you're not doing what you're ultimately there to do.
Yeah, no, I agree. And you mentioned influencing there, which with your outsourcing role and your customer relations role, for me, I describe influencing as the long-term game. So it's skill, not game, the long-term skill, because as a leader, you need to be able to influence and you need to be able to persuade, along with the many other skills that you need to have. How do you see influencing as a leader within a skill? How has it benefited you with the relationships that you've had to form along the way?
I think the outsource space that I worked in probably helped me an awful lot. And I said there are another number of people that worked alongside me in that team. I think because you don't have control over those individuals. Yes, you've got the contract. You pull the contract out if you really want to go down that route. But it's about the relationship, and it's about forging that relationship from the outset. What you see is what you get with me. You're not going to find me with one approach with with a CEO, another approach with an agent, another approach with another external contact. I'll be completely consistent, and I think that way, and they see you for what you are, so they know full well you're completely genuine. There's a level of authenticity which I think is really important in leadership. Is that's who you are, and that's how you behave, and that's how you kind of carry yourself. So I think forging those relationships by being authentic, by just being yourself, I think over time you build that relationship. But I think you need to get yourself into a position whereby you're not afraid to have difficult conversations with people, and actually you shouldn't be afraid to be able to take that difficult conversation back either. Back that piece around, it's not necessarily personal. It's you just got to find a way through something because people aren't always going to agree with what it is that you want to do. As much as that sometimes pains you, that's just the nature of how things go. So I think building those relationships, I think from the outset, and working with people and showing that you actually do care about them as well. Showing that you've got the back and that you'll be there to protect them and make sure they've got a safe environment in which to operate. That relationship kind of does build up, and again, it just makes that conversation a little bit easier, I think. And when you're trying to influence people, that they know what you're all about. And obviously, if you don't know people, you kind of need to understand how they operate, get on their wavelength. Again, build your network. I think, as we mentioned earlier on in the conversation, make sure you've got a good enough network to be able to lean on to help form a picture about the people that you need to go away and influence. So you can then have a good conversation with them. And it might not always work first time. You might need to go back round on that. But I think for me, it's about just being yourself and showing that you genuinely care. Try and get on their wavelength. Show how they've got a vested interest, or they could benefit from the stuff that that you're going to be doing, and try and bring them on board. And I think that's important. People that know me know that I can be direct at the best of times. But I think it's being able to, I don't think you need to use that as often if you build those relationships and you're just a genuine person. I think a lot of the groundwork is already done. I think they kind of just buy into it a little bit more readily than if you have very different personas depending on who you're dealing with. I think that's a lot harder because you don't know who you're dealing with at that moment in time, and therefore it becomes a lot harder to be able to influence people.
Honestly, you have the best gravitas. At Vodafone, you were respected. And that's why I reached out to you to come on the podcast, because I still respect you. I see, the awards that your team have won on LinkedIn. And you're so spot on with building those relationships. Whether you need to be working with that person tomorrow or not, it's about just building great relationships with people and being authentic and genuine. Because when you do need to work with them, they know who you are and you know about them. So you've already got that. It's just the right thing to do, isn't it? It's just like, when you join a call and everybody's so quiet, nobody speaks. It's like, that is a perfect opportunity if you want to start to really navigate your career, to start breaking the ice with people, because people love people. People buy into people. And, that's a little tip I've just thrown in there. Like, just break the ice with people and just remember people's names and just start to ask them. Remember that, that they said that they were going on holiday at the weekend, whilst you're waiting for the call to start. How did it go? Did you have a good time? And just, building that relationship absolutely pays dividends. But it's got to be authentic. People can sniff it when it's BS. But that is influencing in a nutshell.
And that's an important point. It's got to be natural.
Yeah.
There's no point trying to force a conversation that isn't there, because for me, it stands out like a sore thumb. I think you've already said it there. I think people can see straight through that, and I don't think that's the best way to build relationships. You need to do it organically. There needs to be an opportunity for you to build that network and that relationship, rather than try and force the issue by all of a sudden plonking yourself next to somebody on a desk down in HQ because you think that's the best thing for you to do. It's not me. It's never been me. And my personal opinion is I don't think that's the right approach to take. You have to wait for that opportunity to come, and when the opportunity does come, you take it. And say you build up your network organically, and that way people know what you're all about, and there's been a genuine interaction rather than something that's completely forced and to a large extent staged.
100% get it, love it. The one thing I want to ask you, right? So you go into these new departments. So you started in sales, but then you went to credit control, then you've gone to customer relations, and then you've gone into D&G. There would have been a period of time where you didn't know how all of that function operated. So it's fair to say, would you agree that there would be a knowledge gap for that area?
Yeah.
And for a lot of managers, it puts them off moving to the next level because they think, well, what if I don't know what to do when I get there? I don't know. I wouldn't, I don't know that department, and it stops them from moving forward. How did you navigate that as you've moved to all these different areas of industries?
It, to be honest, it wasn't really a consideration. I didn't go into it thinking I don't know much about these areas. Oh, crikey, that's it. It just wasn't. It was that's where I want to go. I'm interested in doing that, and it was more a bit of a I need to tick off all these boxes for all the various disciplines and areas that you can go to because I think that's what's going to help build me as an individual and get that broader knowledge of a business that you're going to need if you want to progress. So I probably approached it in a slightly different way. There were knowledge gaps, don't get me wrong, and you know you can sometimes get frustrated with yourself when you could be 2 months in, you could be 5 months in, you're going, why don't I know this? But again, you've got to use your network and use the team around you. Just tell me, just educate me and tell me about this. I don't think there's any such thing as a daft question. So just make sure you continue asking the questions. And it was a little bit like that when it came to D&G, and it was a bit hard because it was in the middle of COVID. My introductions felt like 40 different rounds of speed dating because I just had team call after team call after team call after team call, which was great. But there's nothing better than actually getting to meet people face to face, which obviously the pandemic kind of put pay to for a while. But it helped me to learn quite a bit as well about being able to ask all these questions to these individuals. And then, even 5 months in, 6 months in, I'd sit and I think I'd be scratching my head going, I think I should know this by now, but I don't know it. And again, you keep going back to it. And then all of a sudden, I got to a certain point, certainly in D&G, and it was like something had just clicked overnight. And it felt like I'd completely got the rhythm of the department. And I don't know, there were still things that need to be done, but I felt like I got the rhythm of the department in terms of how it operated, the cycle that we went through, the key stakeholders, what results we were producing. And it was literally like a light bulb had gone off. It's like, right, I kind of get this now. So it's about how do I continue, try and build on that. That was, for me, that was important, but each kind of box off, right, I'm aware of it. I've got the core of the operation that I need to know about. And it's about from building there on in. And again, it's, you never stop learning. There's always stuff that you're going to pick up. There's still stuff now that I don't know probably about my teams and my department, but it'll come to me, at some point. As I say, you just need to keep asking the questions.
Yeah, definitely. And knowledge is power. I think when you don't know something, if you sit there in silence, which a lot of leaders do, then that obviously builds in procrastination and you put things off. And then
Yeah.
that just eats into the self-esteem and the belief in yourself. But you're right. Just go and ask questions. You can't know everything, can you? You,
It's
it's,
what you have your team for to a degree because you have subject matter experts that sit alongside you that you need to lean on. I say I'm a dialer manager. I'm no dialer expert, but Colin who works for me, he is an expert, and I'll go to him and I'll seek counsel from Colin around certain things. And then I say I'll have my ops managers. They'll all be there. There'll be certain things I'll need to get from them. I'll use that group. Then I've got an early life manager. I've got a change in governance manager. I'll go to the various people that I need to for the different bits and pieces. Yes, I know, the high level stuff, but there'll be sometimes when you just have to get in the detail and you're just not going to be as close to that for obvious reasons. But so long as you've built your team, you've created that environment for them to thrive and be successful, they'll have the information available. And again, if they've not got it, it's not a problem. They'll know somebody that's got it and that will have it. Again, it's about just reaching out to that right person and getting the detail. So it's, you're not going to be able to know everything. That's just the way it goes.
how did you manage through COVID then? New role. We're in COVID. What was that like as a leader?
It was a bit crazy. Flying by the seat of your pants, I think, at the best of time. But I think I could probably speak for every leader. I think because everyone was kind of learning as they were going along. There was no easy way to get through that, and I think it changed a lot of people. I think it changed a lot of people generally around that their approach to life and their approach to work, and I think we see a very different approach post pandemic for sure. I think for me, again, because I had all these meetings put in by my boss, at the time, it was let's just get through it, and it everyone was kind of finding a new norm. It helped that the weather was glorious. I remember it was 6 or 8 weeks of glorious sunshine and great temperatures. Everyone thought, well, this is good. It's only going to last for a few weeks. I'm going to get a few days off work, and this is going to be great. And then obviously it became a little bit more serious than that. And it was about helping your team, supporting your team to get through based on the information that you had in front of you at the time. And we had great leaders in the business, in D&G. Again, you have to work from home, but even beyond that point, we took a decision to look at flexible working, something we call everyday flexibility, which again is a quite pragmatic and sensible approach to how you work and where you work. And it goes against the grain of quite a few businesses at the minute. But that's probably what makes us unique and probably attracts some of the top talent into the business, and and helps us with some of the kudos that D&G are getting at the minute. So I think you just have to find your feet and kind of fumble through. And at the same time, you got anybody who had kids at the same time with homeschooling was it homeschooling? I don't know. They were spending an hour on the laptops a day doing a little bit, and then they were probably out in the garden or off on their Xbox and that kind of stuff. But again, it's just one of those unique situations. You were just finding your way through it. It was just, see what happens at the time. Yeah, it was a tough time. But again, I think that's one of the points I made. Everyone's looking at you within your area for an answer. You have to kind of give them the confidence and reassurance that, yes, we think we've got the answers. And if we don't have the answers, we'll go away and get you the answers. But, at the same time, supporting your team along that process, because it was a difficult learning journey for quite a lot of people.
Yeah, good on you for navigating a new role through that. I mean, it was tough anyway, but a new role. I remember a few people that did that, and it was like, wow. Have you ever doubted yourself in leadership?
I think always. I think there's always doubt there, and again, I think that's probably a drive in a lot of leaders. You want to do better, you want to push on, you're never satisfied with what you're delivering. There's always more that you want to go and get. So I think a good leader has natural doubt anyway. I think it's always there, because you can't sit and go, well, job done. I'll put my feet up, everything's rosy. I don't think you ever get to that situation. You can be a little bit more content, but I don't think you ever get to that situation where you think, yeah, I've got no doubt. I think everyone looks at you, when you've got a big organisation or a big channel to lead, everyone looks at you for the answers, as I said earlier on. So, and sometimes you can be filled with a little bit of doubt, and that's where you draw back on your experiences previously of, do you know what? Sometimes you give yourself a bit of a kick up the backside and say, no, come on, you need to pull yourself together here a little bit. You've done it before, you can do it again. You'll be in these same situations, and again, it's about taking those learnings forward and just drawing from the experiences that you've had to see yourself through. Not being afraid to reach out to people. I think it's not a bad thing to be vulnerable. As I say, people look at you for the answers. You're not always going to have those answers. I think sometimes you need to be honest and say, listen, I don't quite know just yet, but give me a bit of time, and I'll come back to you what I think the best approach is. And I think, again, being open and transparent, I suppose, with that blend of authenticity, I think for me has worked across my career. But again, if you get the right team in place, it helps a lot. You get the right people, all pulling in the same direction, all got the same energy and passion and care and belief as you have. Then I think it makes that a little bit easier. But yeah, there's going to be doubt there. I question any leader that doesn't have it.
Oh, I can't thank you enough for that answer. That will help so many watching this. You will have no idea how many people they'll be watching this and they'll go, really? Crikey. Like, do we need to normalise this? We all doubt ourselves, but it's making sure that doubt doesn't stay with us. And you're right, having that growth mindset to say, being open and vulnerable, whatever that looks like for you, saying, I haven't got the answers to this, so who do I need to go to? Who's going to come and help me to get the answers? Honestly, I can't thank you enough for that answer, because that will absolutely make such a difference to somebody listening to this now. If there is, somebody's listening to this now, a leader that feels a bit stuck in their career, wants to progress, wants, maybe to have a position like you, what advice would you give to them?
Well, that's a great question, Liz. What advice would I give to? I think you've got to be committed, and you've got to want to put the work and the effort. And again, that sounds kind of obvious, but you've got to have the work ethic and desire and ambition to want to do that. It's not, you can't just go and grab it and go, that's great, I've got it now. There's always somebody there that's on your shoulder that wants it just as much as you, if not a little bit more. So that should keep you on your toes. I think don't be afraid to move roles. Don't be afraid to go and try something new. And if you've been stuck in a role for a while, and I wouldn't say I was stuck in a role, but I was stuck in a business for a while, and I could tell it was coming to a natural end. Is don't be afraid to make the jump, because as I say, what you will find probably 99 times out of 100 is it was absolutely the right decision to take, and it's just about having to be brave enough to be able to take that leap and actually do what was there. You shouldn't live with any regrets. I think because had I stayed at Vodafone now, I would probably be quite miserable, even more so than probably what some people tell me I am. But I'd probably be quite miserable, unhappy, regretting that an opportunity came along that I didn't take with both hands, and it'd be more a case of what could have been. But as I say, I'm a very firm believer of things happening for a reason. I think things come together all at the right point, and things happen. I think things happen naturally. So I think any leader who is probably wanting to move on is you kind of have to make it yourself. You have to go out there and look for those opportunities, and be brave. Be bold. Don't be afraid to take the leap. What's the worst that can happen? So exactly. What's the worst that can happen? You might not enjoy it. You look for something different. You might enjoy it. You might find that you thrive in that environment. And you look back and go, do you know what, it was the best decision I've ever made. Which for me, moving away from where I was into D&G, again, I stand by that. That's something I tell people on a regular basis. For me, it was the right time, the right move, with the right business. Hence why I believe in fate quite a bit. So, but I think people just need to be able to take that leap and trust yourself, back yourself. You'll be fine.
I was just going to say that, back yourself. I always say that. I say that to myself, my own self-talk. I back myself. I might not have the answers, but I do back myself. So I love that. That's brilliant advice. So what's next for you then?
I don't know. I'm certainly not actively looking for a role. As I say, my boss will tell you the same. I think there's a lot of unfinished business where I am at the minute. There's some goals that we've got that we want to fix, and this is probably the longest I've been in a role for a number of years. Whether that's a lateral move or a vertical move, I think in D&G, I think remains to be seen. To be perfectly honest, I'm happy where I am, but it's not to say if an opportunity comes along that's an interesting project, you wouldn't consider it. As I say, it depends on what happens at that moment in time. But for now, I'm certainly really happy doing what I'm doing. Love the team that I've got. Love the people that I work alongside. It's just more a question of delivering the results that the business is asking of me and more, and then just seeing where the path takes me. As I say, which is for me, there's no pressure there. I don't need to push on for a given reason. If an opportunity comes along, and I think it's the right one and the right project, then yes, it's something worth looking at.
Yeah, definitely. And just quickly, you did say to me that you found out about you getting your director's role when it was being presented. Because you didn't go in as a director, did you?
No, I went in as a head of, and there was some restructuring that took place, and I remember we were down in, I think it was in Brighton, I think it was at the cricket ground down there. There was a bit of an all hands day, again, lovely weather, great environment, great atmosphere, doing a bit of celebration around what we'd done in the previous year, setting our strategy for the year ahead, and then it was put up around the restructure, and there's been a couple of other people that had been promoted, and I didn't know what was actually happening, and a bit of a wry smile to my boss. Like, were you going to tell me about this? Obviously, like, yeah. So, but we were going to get to this at this point. So it's a nice surprise to see that being the case. And again, it was, I was absolutely made up by the fact that it was more as a direct reflection of the results that we delivered as a team. There was some strategic change and structural changes, but I was really happy that was how it had come about. And I suppose that was 3 years ago now. I think probably 3 years ago in June that all came about. And as I say, we've moved on now. 3 years down the line, we've had quite a few changes. We're still in a pretty decent space, but it was a nice surprise.
Yeah, I bet it was. How did it feel to be to achieve director level? It's pretty awesome.
Listen, it's really nice. I'm not being completely honest. I'm not massive on titles. It's not you call me chief dishwasher if that's what you want to do. So as long as I feel valued and and I'm able to make a contribution to the business that I'm in, and I feel like I can make a contribution, I'm happy. I'm quite relaxed in that way. But it's nice. It's a nice bit of kudos. It's nice to go home and tell your family, look, I've been promoted. And it's come quite naturally, quite organically. It's come as a result of what it is that's been delivered. I think was nice, and actually it's nice for the team that I lead and for people that I've worked with in the past. To go, it's absolutely possible. I started as an agent on the phones 20 odd years ago now. It would be, I didn't think I'd be where I am, fast forward 20 years time where I am now. Absolutely not. But it just goes to show when you're having conversations with people, listen, if I can do it, anybody literally can do it. So, you just got to throw yourself out there, work hard, graft, really put the effort in. You get a little bit of luck along the way. I think that's natural. But so long as you put yourself in the right position and you're doing the hard work and, you're, I suppose your overall attitude is right and you're just being yourself and you're being authentic, then over time, I think the odds are probably more stacked in your favour to be able to progress.
Absolutely, 100%. And that is a brilliant note to end it on. Simon, you have been a legend. I am so glad that you said that you do this because honestly, wow, it's inspiring and I'm so happy for you. And I just know that anybody listening to this is going to get a heck of a lot of good advice from you that they can absolutely implement straight away. So thank you so much. It's great to have you on here.
No problem. Thanks, Liz. And thanks for the invite. Appreciate it.
So I hope you enjoyed hearing Simon's journey as much as I did. And I'm really chuffed that he shared and been open and vulnerable. He's talked about men do struggle to open up. So if you are a male leader watching this or a female, I hope you feel inspired because everything is possible. And my coaching just gives you options, but we focus on you. And then we add the leadership skills. So you get the results that Simon's had. And, 12 weeks, 12 hours of coaching and what an incredible transformation. And I'm so lucky that I'll be keeping in touch with Simon and seeing how his journey progresses. I can't wait to see what the rest of the year is going to bring for him. And as he heads in to 2026, and I can't say a big enough thank you to Simon for just being so open and just sharing his journey. It'd be brilliant if you liked the episode. If you could leave a review, that would really help my channel out. And I will see you next time.